Welcome to Biz Dev Live. My name is Cameron Toth, and I'm so excited to bring you the author of the Gogiver, Endless Referrals, sold over 2 million books, incredible wisdom, and really one of the best books that I've read ever. It's a shorter book, but it packs amazing value. If you are an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, and you're trying to lead a life where you're truly helping, inspiring, and getting what you need, and really learning how to focus on the things that are most important in this world so that you can truly be successful in every way possible. This is a book you need to pick up. We're going to get into it. We'll be right back with Bob Burg right after the Biz Dev theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
All right, everybody. If you are watching, we want to know where you're viewing from, so I can let Bob know where you're viewing from. Bob, where you're coming from? Jupiter, Florida. Is that right? That's right. All right. I'm going to introduce Bob, and then we'll get right into today's conversation. But we want your questions. Where are you trying to go? If you've read the Go Giver, is there a law that you have a question about? We'll get to it. We've got about a half an hour here with Bob, and I'm so excited to get into it. So just a little bit about Mr. Bob Burg here. Bob Burg shares how a subtle shift in focus is not only a more uplifting and fulfilling way of conducting business, but the most financially profitable way as well. For 30 years, he's helped companies, sales leaders, and their teams to more effectively communicate their value, sell at higher prices with less resistance, and grow their businesses based on endless referrals. Bob has regularly addressed audiences ranging in size from 50 to 60,000, sharing the platform with notables including today's top thought leaders, broadcast personalities, Olympic athletes, and political leaders, including former United States president. Although for years he was best known for his book, Endless Referrals, it is his business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, that captured the imagination of his readers. And I mean, I'm going to just tell people, if you don't know who Bob Burg is and you haven't picked up the book, The Go-Giver, it is just really worthwhile for you to do so. I think it packs a heck of a punch for a fairly small size book, incredibly well written. I know you always credit John David Mann, your co-author, for helping you to do that. Just really impactful. I recommend it to anybody that is looking to, you start talking about, the better you serve people, the more money you can make. I like it because not only are you giving something in terms of a meaningful way to actually interact with people, but it's also talking about financial wealth, building something for yourself that you can advance in the world, because so often it's either one or the other, and your book really tackles how to do both. Thank you for being on the show, Bob. Please. Thanks for being here. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about, you have one of these conversations right away early in the book, and Joe's talking to Pindar, and they're basically talking about, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you expect. So can you sort of lay out what that means to everybody? What is Pindar talking about? You get what you expect, and how can that help people sort of understand the 5 laws to stratospheric success in your book? Oh, sorry, I have you on mute. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and there's nothing magical or mystical about this when we say you don't get what you necessarily get what you want, you get what you expect. Because when we expect a certain result, we tend to do the things that cause those results to happen. I often say if you're about to deal with someone who is known as let's say, a difficult person to deal with, and you go into that meeting expecting that person to be difficult, they're probably going to be difficult. If you
Mm,
expect them to be kind and helpful and thoughtful, they're probably going to be that way. But wait, doesn't that sound like magical thinking? Well, here's where it's different, okay? It's not that what you expect, it's not that your positive expectation of them changes them. It doesn't. Your positive expectation of them changes you.
hmm
And that's what changes them. So when you go in there expecting them to be kind and helpful and thoughtful and all those positive qualities, you take on the gratitude of someone who is dealing with that person. You like that person. You feel
Yeah.
great about that person. And everything you put out there with your energy, with your words, with your actions says to this person, communicates to this person, this is a real benevolent conversation. This is a great, right? And
Yeah.
it's very difficult to not like someone who likes you. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to not want to come through for someone who greatly appreciates you. And that's why when you expect a certain thing with a certain person, why it
Yeah.
tends to happen.
I talk about this a lot in interviews with staff, just the psychological thing of if you enter a room with a smile, whether you necessarily feel happy or
Mhm.
excited about that interview, there's a whole psychological piece that takes place immediately when somebody's seeing you for the first time. If they feel like you're coming in and you're smiling, you're happy to be there, there's this sudden, oh, they like me, I like them. It's just this whole psychological thing. And then the reverse, if you come in and maybe you're just thinking about something else, you're in another conversation, but you have a grimace on your face, suddenly there's this whole psychological, oh, they don't like me, I don't like them. And so it's really interesting, sort of hear that piece of it, which is just a basic psychological thing. It's just what we do. We're human. It's how we react. It's how we respond. And then there's this whole other thing of how you sort of set yourself up mentally to go into a room to get what you expect. How do you sort of help people, in the business world, whether it's, on a large scale, company wide, or even down to the personal, help people get there to expect the things that are important, to create this go-giving attitude?
Well, I think in a sense, it's just helping people to understand why it's in their best interest to live life and do business that way. Okay, so let's take the basic premise of the Go Giver itself, and that is simply that shifting your focus, right? And this is where it all begins. Shifting your focus from getting to giving. Giving, meaning in this context, simply meaning constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, right? Understanding that as you mentioned before, not only is this a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. Well, why is that? Is it for some kind of just again magical mystical reasons? Not at all. It's actually very logical. It's very rational. When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, placing it on discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire. When you can take your focus off yourself and place it on helping other people solve their challenges and problems, when you can take your focus off yourself and focus on helping other people attain the results they want and get closer to happiness, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to see you succeed. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to tell others about you. They want to do business with you if they need what you offer, right? So and I often when I speak at sales conferences, one of the first things I'll say is nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Okay. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or you want the sale to happen. They're not even going to buy from you because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So doesn't it make sense then that that salesperson or entrepreneur who can take their focus off themselves and focus on bringing an immensely valuable, wonderful experience to that other person, doesn't it make sense that they're the ones who are most likely going to have that sale take place?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really simple idea, but it can be very hard to get across to so many different people. And then you have complete, organizations that are all about, they're counting the seconds that you're on the phone and how efficient you are. And so we get into a place where uh, the values and, where people are saying to spend your time don't line up. How do you convince large organizations that just doing the right thing for the customer is the right thing to do?
I don't know that you necessarily convince anyone of anything. Because if leadership just doesn't want to buy into that, and it's got to start with the company leadership. I mean, you can lead from anywhere, of course, and you can influence a certain amount of people, but a culture begins at the top, okay, and it trickles down. And if the top leadership is not vested in the Go-Giver way of doing something, and instead doing things the way they always have, then that's kind of how it is. The good news is we find there are tons and tons of companies who either are headed in the right direction and just kind of want the help to get there a little quicker, or they're already doing a great job at it. And it's those who they just want even that more advantage. They want it to do it even better. So I think the way that, if it's going to happen, that organizations and cultures that don't have this Go-Giver way about them, but
Mhm.
instead it's the way they've always done it, and whether it's the top down command and control, forget about the customer, it's all about the bottom line, they're going to find out in turn that they're going to be passed over by the ones who actually are doing it a different way than they are. And then out of necessity, they might hopefully ask themselves, maybe there's a different way to do this that's more effective. And if they don't, well, the market is eventually going to tell them this is just the way it is, and they're going to be out of business.
I love that. Now, for my small business folks, my entrepreneurs, my solopreneurs, you lay out in the book a path to financial success. The law of value. Your true worth is determined by how much you give in value than you take in payment. The law of compensation. Your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them, which I think is huge, right? Just understanding business model kind of stuff. The nitty gritty of, are you set up to actually make money, or are you set up to just kind of work and work without necessarily bringing a whole lot of compensation in, right? So how do you set up your business? The law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. The law of authenticity, which we were just talking about, the law of authenticity, the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself, which I think is something that a lot of people struggle with. They're not comfortable with telling their story and get into the comparison game and want to be, John D. Rockefeller before they're, moved up to the simple next, logical step. The law of receptivity. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving, which I think is probably one of the most difficult ones. I know for me, I don't always leave myself open to the things that, focused on, I got to do this thing and I got to do that thing. And like we talked about from the beginning here, you get what you focus on. And sometimes I'm not open to receiving the good things. And I recognize when I read the book, man, I gotta leave myself open to receiving the really good things that can come to me, and get better at that. Do you
Well, it's
want to just kind of highlight that on that? Because I think that's so difficult for folks to understand that piece. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the law of receptivity, the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. What does that mean? Well, really, it's nothing more than understanding and embracing that yeah, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in, right? In order to survive, in order to thrive. It's not one or the other. You breathe out carbon dioxide and you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving, giving value. You breathe in, which is receiving. The key, I think, is the realization that giving and receiving, despite the messages, the many messages of lack that we receive from the world around us in terms of abundance, prosperity, money, business, where there are so many just absolutely negative messages. Despite that, it's understanding that giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work together in tandem. Now, we know the focus has to be on the giving of value to others. Again, people are doing business with you for their reasons, not for your reasons, right? So the focus is on the giving of value. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? It's the thunder to value's lightning, which means nothing more than that the value must be the focus point. The value you're providing another human being, that's where it begins. You focus on the value. The money you receive is simply a very natural result of the value you've provided. And you've got to be open to receiving it. Unfortunately, because of those negative messages that the world hands us, it can be very easy to have our unconscious stuck with the idea that there's something wrong about earning lots of money. There's nothing wrong with earning lots of money. It's a great thing to do. Okay. So long as we've first provided value, we've earned the right, not the entitlement, the right to receive. But when our unconscious mind is fighting us and telling us that all these horrible things we've heard, since whether a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, right? My great friend Randy Gage, who's one of the world's leading authorities when it comes to prosperity and prosperity consciousness, talks about how, in every major movie, there's two types of characters who are represented. There are the good people who are generally portrayed as being struggling, right? And poor, but they're always happy. They're poor, but they're happy and they're honest and they're wonderful people, but they're always being put down, pushed over, pushed around, stepped on by who? The rich people, who are always portrayed as being mean and nasty and horrible and cowardly, and they have no soul, right? He points out just a great example, and there are so many, but one of the great examples he points out is in the first Spider-Man movie, where Peter Parker is sitting with his Uncle Ben, and they're talking about their financial situation, and Uncle Ben says, "Well, Peter, we may be poor, but at least we're honest." Oh, what an absolutely horrible message for a young person to see. Because what's the presupposition there? What's the premise? That if you're honest, you're probably not going to be very wealthy and have a lot of things that you want. But if you are wealthy, you probably got there dishonestly. Now,
Right.
you think about that, people say, "Oh, that's just a movie." No, first of all, it's
Yeah.
practically every movie, but it's also so much of our culture where that message, comes across. So we've got all these horrible images,
Negative
negative
mental things flowing
associations
from your
about.
parents everywhere, right? All these different things that are saying if money's coming in, and that's why that piece of the book hit me a lot, because exactly what you're saying, you can say, I'm not worthy of this. Or for me to charge this much, it's negative. And so, and it's not only just money, because you say, are you open to receiving? Well, of course, somebody walks through the door with money. Of course, I'll take it. I'm open to that receiving, but open to receiving advice, opportunity, different ways of doing things, open to receiving the world and really being open, because so many people have these walls and shields put up to sort of block so many things out. And so if you get to a place where you get to a more positive mental state to be able to receive the good things, I just thought That was amazing. So I sorry to interrupt, but I want to
Not
add
at
that
all.
level of context there. Yeah.
So as a thought, Cameron, I would suggest making a study, a proactive study of prosperity. There are so
Mm,
many people out there who do such a wonderful job, who blog about prosperity, who have books on it, who have videos on it. People like Randy Gage, people like Sharon Lechter, people like Ellen Rogan, people like Bob Proctor and David Nagel and Ken Honda, and all these fantastic people who put out such great information. And I'll tell you, 99.9% of what they talk about is getting past your unconscious, getting past those blocks that keep you from the prosperity that's your birthright, that you deserve to have, because as a result of the value you're providing others. So I think the negative messages in this regard come in from everywhere. We get them
yeah.
every day, all the time. So we need to make a conscious effort to study prosperity.
And get out of our own ways, right? I think
Oh,
that's
very
like the
much.
biggest lesson, right? Get out of your own way. So
Mhm.
talk to me, because this you read the Go-Giver, it feels very biographical. Obviously, it's not Bob in the book, it's Joe and it's Pindar. Were you ever Joe? Were you this kind of young guy, kind of frustrated? I think the word in the book, a lot of going, not getting. Was that ever you?
Oh, sure, sure. And one reason why John David Mann and I named the main character Joe was just because of the name. We always had the average Joe, or
Mm,
the so everybody, I think, has been a Joe or Josephine at some time or another, where we were just learning, right? And we were doing things, we had the potential, but perhaps our focus wasn't in the right place. And that's certainly me. And I remember being in sales for a couple of years. I'd studied sales, I'd learned sales, was really into personal development, and I was doing really well. And I then took on another job with a company selling a high ticket item, um, and I remember I started out in a slump, right? And I just could not get out of that slump. And not only is it a horrible thing, a horrible feeling to be in a slump. But when you've just started with a company, you're trying to prove yourself, and I did what a lot of young, inexperienced salespeople do when they go into their first major slump, and that is I pressed so hard. I was really focusing just on myself and making the sale, as opposed to focusing on my customers, clients, and so forth. And I remember coming back to the office one day really disgusted with myself after a non-sale, and one of the people there, he was an older guy, much older guy. In fact, I think he was getting ready to retire. He was not in the sales department. I think he was an engineer, and a nice guy. Didn't say a whole lot, but one of these people who, whenever he did say something, it was usually pretty profound. And I think he saw me as sort of Joe, right? In the story that I would write about with John David Mann 20, 25 years after, because this is like 40 years ago. This is a long time ago. And I think he saw me as that young, ambitious, aggressive, up and coming, but very frustrated young salesperson, just like Joe, right? Who just had potential, but was not coming near to reaching it. And he took me aside and he said, Berg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Berg, can I give you some advice? And I said, absolutely, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target, he said, is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And this is really where it hit me, Cameron, that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson.
well,
Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are.
right.
Great salesmanship is really all about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. Really, when you think about it, it's about that person whose life becomes better just because you are part of it.
I love it.
And I think that, yeah, when we can approach sales from that premise, from that foundation, I think we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
I love it. I love it. And I gotta say, it's really a pleasure to hear you speak on it, because you can tell you speak from the heart and the passion. Again, I want to recommend people, if you haven't read the Go-Giver, got to go pick it up. And if you read it before a long time ago, pick it up and read it again. It's a short read. It really does add value into your life. It's good, puts you in the right frame to do exactly what Bob is telling you, to serve, and you're going to get a lot of value from that. Two things, you know, you're such a great writer. You've sold over 2 million of your books. What's a book that you really wish you read early on in your career?
Oh, yeah, and there are certainly a lot of books like that. One of them is, probably it's gotta be among my all-time favorite books. I read 10 years ago when it first came out, a couple of years after it first came out. I hadn't heard of it at first. It was called The Secret of Selling Anything by
Mm,
a man by the name of Harry Brown, Browne. Now, the interesting thing about Harry is that he wrote this. This was actually written in the 1960s, not meant to be published. Harry was a someone I consider a hero and a great mentor. He wrote a number of best-selling books on everything from economics to politics to philosophy. Brilliant man. But this particular book was simply it was a guide he had written, a manual for his sales team back in the
wow.
60s. He was leading a sales organization. When he passed, and I think it was 2007 or 2008, his widow Pamela had found these two manuscripts, short manuscripts, on his hard drive, and she gave them to somebody who knew someone who knew an independent publisher, an information marketer, basically, who published the book. Okay, and the person titled it "The Secret of Selling Anything," because in the book, Harry says the secret of selling anything need not be a secret. It's
Right.
simply discover what the other person wants and help them get it. But the book is really two parts. The first part is simply understanding human nature. This is something that Harry was an expert on. He was a guy, he lived in truths. And I believe all successful people, they live in truths.
Mm.
They don't just see the world as they wish it would be, in terms of in terms of, oh, I just wish this or I wish that. No,
Rose-colored glasses, yeah.
right. Well, it's that they first understand what really is. Okay. Now, they don't let that stop them. Don't get me wrong. They don't let that stop them, but they utilize the truths and the laws of life in order to advance the world
Positive
and
realist,
advance
yeah.
the process. Okay. Um, and so when it comes to human nature, he laid out what drives, what motivates people, why people do what they do. Okay. Not what he just wishes people wanted to do, but the way people are. And he respects that and he honors that in the book. And then he shows how to work within that in order to improve the situation for everyone. The second part of the book is how that relates to sales. And of course, it relates 100% to sales.
Right.
So in my blog about probably 8 or 9 years ago, I actually wrote a review of the book at burg.com/blog. If you put in the search, The Secret of Selling, or even Harry Brown with an E at the end, you can read the article, and there's a link to the person who sells the book. I think you can even get it on Amazon, and you can download a free copy of it or something. I'm not sure if that still is or anything, but I got to tell you, that is a magnificent book.
Well, while people are going to bobburg.com and googling for the secret to selling anything by Harry Brown, talk to us about the Go-Giver Success Alliance mentorship community that you put together to sort of work around these laws and give people the guidance.
Sure. And here's Harry's book right here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It's The Secret of Selling Anything. And remember, it was written in the 60s, so the language is 60-ish language. And so I ask people to, where it's, he or there's not the inclusive language that we would
Right.
see nowadays and so forth. So I ask people to forgive that, but that's just when it was written. But the principles are just absolutely outstanding. Yeah. The Go-Giver Success Alliance is something my business partner, Kathy Tagenell, and I put together. It's a group of very successful people. We meet online. The big flagship part of it is that on Wednesday mornings at 11 o'clock Eastern time, we have a Zoom call with everyone in the organization, and we basically we learn together, we share together, we strategize together, we collaborate together, we build these amazing relationships with one another. And then there's also throughout the week there are all sorts of elements, videos that are exclusive only to this group, back and forth online. And it's one of these things I've almost stopped trying to say what it's really all about, because what we found is there's sort of a magic quality in there that you've almost got to just be there and experience. But most of us will say it's our favorite time of the week. It's just so fantastic. So if people go to burg.com and scroll down the page a little bit until they see what looks like a few people at a coffee shop, which if you've read the Go-Giver, it's Rachel's famous cafe. And then just click on that. There's a video message from me, and then there's one from one of our members, and you're welcome to take a look at it and see if it's something you feel would add value to you.
I hope people check it out. I know that you provide value everywhere you live. You live the Go-Giver life. Thank you for doing this with me today, taking time out of your schedules to do it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You deliver tremendous value. Thank you so much, Bob. Have an amazing day. Everybody, please, if you have not connected with Bob Burg on LinkedIn, if you have not checked out the Go-Giver, go pick up a book, check out the Go-Giver Success Alliance Mentorship Community. You can go to burg.com and check that out. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Bob. I'm going to give you the last words. I'll let you leave a nugget, and we'll get you out of here.
Oh, I appreciate you having me with you. I wish everybody who is on the call and or listening on the watching on the replay just a fantastic day. Fantastic last quarter of the year. Don't stop now. Now's the time to really make it happen. Remember, not only because you're still working, do you give yourself a decided advantage because so many people stop working from right around Thanksgiving to December, but everything you do now is going to get the momentum going for the first quarter and first half of 2022. So keep at it, make it happen. Be both a go-getter, a person of action, and a go-giver, a person absolutely focused on bringing immense value to others.
Great advice, Bob. Thank you.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live.